very hard ride of it come 2012 or 2013. So one of the first things you can do right now is create your transparency and disclosure policies now. Document your legal interpretation, how you're looking at the laws. Document your procedures as you refine them. This will help you as you go along in guiding exactly what you need and what you need to look at. And part of that policy development is the discovery process. So you need to find your spend now. And being over-inclusive is a lot better than being under-inclusive. Because remember, we have applications for your data beyond just disclosure. We can use these for compliance purposes. We can use them for commercial purposes. Although, of course, you need to ensure that your final product has sort of safeguards wrapped around what sort of ROIs, returns on investments that your commercial department can make. So finding your discovery and establishing your policies is key to getting started on an implementation of a solution. You might start reviewing your contracts now with anyone who might be affected. So your contracts with the reportable recipients, you want to make sure that there's language in there telling them that you will be disclosing certain information about them. Your third-party vendors, you want to review your contracts with them, make sure that they are required to submit accurate reports, that there is a requirement in there for what happens when a report is inaccurate or incomplete and whose responsibility it is to amend that. You also want to have a look at the contracts you have with on co-promotional agreements. So some of the things that you're going to need to decide is who's going to report and what sort of audit rights and obligations do you have under your current agreements, and whether that needs to be amended as well. Take a look at your clinical research organizations and look at your contracts with them. Find out, again, audit and monitoring rights and report submission information. Of course, they've been submitting data for quite a while, but there may be information that we need to include that they're not prepared to do quite yet. So again, the auditing and monitoring rights and obligations there. So I also wanted to chat, and I didn't make a slide for this. I made a summary slide saying, yes, it is a little daunting, but it's absolutely doable. And getting an early start on it is important, even if you don't actually implement your system right now. Getting ready to do it is going to make your life a lot easier in the midterm and in the long term. So somebody asked me before the call started on what were some of the lessons that we learned from the recent Massachusetts reports, and from the recent CBI Congress or Aggregate Spend Conference, as well as talking to our clients. The primary lesson learned was that it's not as easy as we thought. Getting our customer master data settled, refined, deduplicated is a fairly hefty process, and you need to be prepared for that. Finding the spend is not necessarily as easy as people thought. It's also a little eye-opening. So doing a deep dive into that discovery is important, but can be an interesting and I won't say drawn out, because we can do it fairly quickly, but it is a detailed process. And then also the training issues. So a lot of the challenges is that companies had with Massachusetts was the fact that sales reps and other field reps were not necessarily inputting the type of data that is required for the report. And so there were a lot of look-back opportunities there that wasted a lot of human resources, and also is not necessarily the ideal way to be capturing information. So speaking of the CBI conference, we also were going to talk about that. We had 2.5 days of very detailed presentations from some fantastic presenters. Obviously, everybody had a part on the Sunshine Act because this was our first major conference since Sunshine was passed, and everybody had an interpretation and interpretational slides of that. And again, one of the what surprised me was that at previous conferences, the general consensus with a number of companies was that, well, we'll wait and see, and we'll deal with it starting in 2011, 2012. That's changed, and we saw that at the conference in speaking to companies that had said this before and said, no, our executives are on board now. We're on board. There's talk about comparing this to Sarbanes-Oxley reporting requirements, although from what we've seen, this is actually more complicated. So the drive to getting this off the ground is very much there, and although we're awaiting the final rulemaking, we're starting to prepare and pre-implement for preparation for an automated solution. So on that, I'm going to turn it over to Christy. Did you want to say something here?
Sure. Kim, thank you so much for your insight. What I wanted to do at this time was really just open it up to questions. So everyone, I will go ahead and take you off mute. Also, if you would like to add a question in the chat box at the bottom right-hand pane of your toolbar. Okay. Maybe the muting was not a good idea, so I'm going to keep you on mute. We will take questions via the chat bar. And I think I do have a couple coming in here. Hold on just a second. Yeah, we do have a question here. Kim, we had someone who was at the conference and they heard that you were asked about starting a technology forum.
Yeah.
Wondering when that would launch.
This is actually pretty interesting. So another key takeaway from the conference was that these conferences, one of the best opportunities presented at these conferences is to sit down in a group environment with people who are in the similar trenches and discuss some of the more practical aspects of getting an aggregate spend solution off the ground. We had a rousing discussion during a private dinner that I was asked to speak at that ended up with some really interesting ideas on some solutions, some of the technical solutions. And so we were asked to put together a technical forum that would meet on a semi-regular basis where we could discuss these technical issues in sort of a non-threatening but group environment without necessarily having to hop on a plane in order to get to one of the conferences. So we're hoping to launch that by the middle of September. We'll be sending out notices and posting some more information on our website about that.
Okay, thank you. Also, I just wanted to let you know again that you can chat any questions you have in the chat box. We will look for those for the next few minutes. In the meantime, we wanted to let you know, everyone who's on this call, everyone who attended today, we are offering a free 1-hour needs assessment. This is a private one-on-one session where we'll, Kim and her group, and we'll listen to your current issues and environment and help to recommend the most appropriate next steps for your organization. So we will offer this to you in the follow-up email. But if you would like to request this, you can go ahead and email me at the email address or call me at the phone number listed on this slide. Okay.
I see a question. There's a question about the Connecticut law.
Oh, okay.
So Connecticut recently passed a law that looks a lot like Massachusetts without the disclosure component. So Connecticut is going to require implementation of a code of conduct that looks a lot like the Pharma or AdvaMed code, and then certain submissions to the state. And we'll be including more information about that on the in the white paper that you'll receive.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any coming in on my end. And if you do have any questions that come up after this session, please feel free to email them to me at this email address also, and we will make sure that we get back to you on them.
We also, I should have mentioned earlier that we're looking at West Virginia possibly going away, not obviously as a state, but in terms of disclosure requirements. They've been having, as many of you know, West Virginia has lost a lot of its funding. It actually lost its aggregate spend department that was sort of migrated over to a new department. And so they're struggling with whether to continue requiring the disclosure or just go, as Colorado has decided to do, just go with the federal disclosure data that comes out in 2013. And okay. I think everybody on the line owes a nice note of thanks to the representative from Illinois, but we will be sending one on your behalf if you'd like anyway.
Okay. Well, it looks like I don't see any further questions coming in. Again, please feel free to email those after. We will be sending you a copy of the presentation as well as a link to the recorded version. And just one last reminder, part 2 of this session, which focuses on aggregate spend and your data, is being held next Wednesday at 11 Pacific,